Imagine picking up your toddler from daycare, and the moment he sees you, he's not excited, not playful. He's frantically grabbing for food like he hasn't eaten in hours. Because he hasn't. A 21-month-old baby, left in the care of professionals, going without food for 5 straight hours. And when this mother started asking questions, she didn't get answers. She got lies. This is the story of what happens when a daycare fails a child, how one mother fought back, and what every parent needs to know before they trust anyone with their kids. Let's set the scene. A mother in Indiana is juggling a full-time school schedule during the summer semester. Anyone who has been a student parent knows exactly how brutal that is. Long hours, mental exhaustion, and the constant guilt of not being able to be everywhere at once. To ease the transition for her son and for herself, she made the responsible decision to enroll her 21-month-old in daycare just 1 day a week. Not 5 days, not even 3. 1 day a week. The sole purpose was to gradually get her son comfortable with the environment before her schedule intensified. It was thoughtful, it was careful. It was exactly what a good parent would do. She chose a facility where food was included in the price. That detail matters. This wasn't a bring-your-own-lunch situation. The daycare had an explicit responsibility to feed enrolled children as part of the service they were paid to provide. She enrolled her son, paid her fees, and trusted the professionals to do their jobs. But something was wrong almost immediately. The facility used an app called ProCare, a childcare management platform that allows parents to monitor their child's daily activities, meals, naps, and more. It's designed specifically to give parents transparency and peace of mind. Here's the problem. It took 3 full weeks for this mother to get access to the app. 3 weeks. She also didn't receive the door code to enter the facility for that same period of time. She had to complain just to get basic access that should have been provided on day 1. When she finally got into the app, what she discovered changed everything. She pulled up her son's records and started reading through the activity logs from his recent visits. She noticed something deeply alarming. On 2 separate occasions, 2 days in a row, there was no documentation of her son receiving any food after 11 in the morning. She picks him up between 4:30 and 5 in the evening. That's a gap of roughly 5 to 6 hours. For context, a 21-month-old child needs to eat every 2 to 3 hours. Going 5 or 6 hours without food at that age isn't just uncomfortable. It can affect mood, development, blood sugar levels, and overall well-being. And she had already noticed the signs. Both of those days, her son was starving when she picked him up. She had chalked it up to a rough day. Maybe he hadn't napped well. Maybe he was just fussy. But now she had the data. Now she had documentation. So she did what any reasonable parent would do. She reached out to the daycare for clarification. She asked a very specific and fair question. Do you document everything even if a child refuses food? The daycare staff confirmed yes, absolutely. Everything is documented, even refusals. That answer is actually important because it eliminates the most convenient excuse. If a child refuses to eat, it gets written down. If a child has a snack, it gets written down. The system is supposed to capture everything. So she followed up with the obvious next question. Then why on 2 separate days is there no record of my son eating anything after 11 in the morning? The response she got was stunning in its casualness. Oh, maybe someone forgot to document. Maybe someone forgot. That's the answer. Not an apology, not an investigation, not a supervisor getting involved, just a shrug dressed up in words. Maybe someone forgot. About feeding a toddler, multiple times. She made the decision to withdraw her son immediately. She could no longer trust the quality of care at this facility, and honestly, who could blame her? But here's where the story gets even more troubling, because it wasn't just one red flag. It was a pattern. Remember how she had to complain about not receiving the door code? When she brought that up, the owner of the daycare told her that the door code had already been given to her husband. Now, this might sound like a simple miscommunication, a minor clerical error, something easily resolved. Except, her husband was sitting right next to her during that conversation. He heard the owner say it, and he immediately spoke up and said, "No, I never received the door code either. Neither of us did." The owner had just been caught in a direct, verifiable lie. Not a misremembering, not a miscommunication. A lie told to a parent's face about something the parent's spouse could immediately and definitively contradict. That moment is critical because it reframes everything else. If the owner is willing to lie about something as small and easily disproven as a door code, what else is she willing to lie about? What happens when the stakes are higher? What happens when there's no husband sitting in the room to say, actually, that's not true? This mother was now dealing with a facility that had potentially neglected to feed her infant son for 5+ hours on multiple occasions, had covered it up with a throwaway excuse, and whose owner had already demonstrated she would fabricate information to avoid accountability. She withdrew her son and started asking the most important question of all: what can I actually do about this? The answer is more than most parents realize. In Indiana, licensed child care centers are regulated by the Indiana Family and Social Services Administration, also known as FSSA. Parents have the right to file a formal complaint against any licensed child care provider through this agency. When a complaint is filed, the FSSA can conduct an investigation, which may include unannounced inspections, interviews with staff, and a full review of the facility's documentation and practices. This isn't just about getting justice for one child. It's about protecting every other child currently enrolled in that facility. And this is exactly the kind of situation that warrants a report. Why? Because the documentation doesn't lie. The ProCare app showed no food entries for a 21-month-old child for a 5-hour window, twice. The staff confirmed their policy is to document everything, including refusals. That means either the child was not fed or the documentation was deliberately omitted. Neither option is acceptable, and both deserve scrutiny from a regulatory body. Beyond filing with the FSSA, this mother could also consider reaching out to her county's Child Protective Services to flag the potential neglect, though CPS involvement is typically for more severe or ongoing situations. She could also leave detailed, factual reviews on platforms like Google and Yelp, not to be vindictive, but because other parents in her community deserve to know what she experienced. Documentation is her most powerful tool. Screenshots of the ProCare app, records of her communications with the daycare, notes about the owner's false statement regarding the door code, all of it should be saved. If she paid for services that were not rendered, specifically meals that were included in the cost of care but apparently not provided, she may also have grounds to pursue a small claims case. That's a conversation worth having with a local attorney, many of whom offer free initial consultations. Now let's talk about what every parent watching this can take away. First, if your child care facility uses a monitoring app, get access on day one. Don't wait. Don't accept delays. Your right to transparency about your child's care is non-negotiable. If a facility drags its feet on giving you app access, a door code, or basic onboarding information, that is a red flag. Organizations that are confident in their care don't hide it. Second, review the logs regularly. It doesn't have to be obsessive, but a quick check after pickup can reveal patterns that you might otherwise miss. Feeding times, nap records, activity notes, these tell a story about how your child is actually being treated when you're not there. Third, if something feels off, trust that instinct and document it. Write down dates, times, and exactly what was said. If a staff member or owner tells you something that turns out to be false, note it. If your child seems unusually hungry, upset, or different after a daycare day, note it. That paper trail becomes evidence if you ever need to escalate. Fourth, know your regulatory bodies. Every state has a licensing agency for child care facilities. Find out who oversees daycare centers in your state before you ever need them. Bookmark the complaint page, because if something goes wrong, you want to be able to act immediately, not spend precious time searching for who to call. And finally, withdrawal is sometimes the right answer. This mother made a hard but absolutely correct decision when she pulled her son from that facility. Protecting your child always comes first. You can find another daycare. You cannot undo harm. If something like this has happened to you, if your child came home from daycare hungry, or you discovered gaps in care documentation, or you caught a provider in a lie, you are not powerless. File a report with your state's licensing agency. Document everything. Talk to a local attorney. and share your experience so other parents can be warned. Stories like this one matter because they expose the gaps between what childcare providers promise and what they actually deliver. And sometimes the only thing standing between a vulnerable child and ongoing neglect is a parent who refuses to accept a shrug as an answer. If you want to stay informed about your legal rights as a parent, tenant, employee, or consumer, subscribe to this channel. New stories go up every week, and knowledge is the most powerful protection you have.